Hey guys, welcome to this episode of The Rachel Cruze Show. And today I am really pumped about today's episode because, first and foremost, my friend and newest Ramsey personality, Jade Warshaw, is with me. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's exciting.
So glad you're here. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm excited about this because I know so many of you are on your journey of getting out of debt. And we talk about on the show a lot that every income level is different, every debt level is different. So for some of you, you're like knocking out that like $40,000 student loan debt and you're like, can I do this? And I wanted to bring Jade on because her story is absolutely incredible and proves hope.
Yes.
That people can do this, that you can do this of paying off debt. So Jade, I don't want to like give like the big number away, but it's a huge number.
It's a big number.
How much did you pay off in debt?
$460,000 of debt.
6 figures, y'all. Like in upwards of 6, not like 100,000.
Almost $500,000.
460,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, you did it. So it's possible.
Absolutely, it is.
Pay off this debt. So walk me through what was the debt and like what started this whole process.
Okay, so I like to tell people that it wasn't it was consumer debt. Like a lot of people think, oh, you paid off your mortgage. That's so great. I'm like, no, I wish that it was a mortgage. We did have like a small townhome, but most of it was consumer debt. $280,000 of it was student loans.
Yes, a big chunk.
Yes.
What were your degrees in?
Music.
Yes.
Musicians, Rachel.
There you are.
People who don't tend to make lots of money unless you're like Beyonce or Rihanna.
That's right.
And so, it was student loans, and then we had 2 cars we couldn't afford, credit cards, normal.
Yeah, it was.
Very normal,
Totally.
other than the student loans.
Yes,
So.
and your husband Sam who's wonderful as well, but you guys were on this journey together. So talk me through that first moment where you realize, okay, we have all this debt, and we don't want to continue to live like this, so we have to make a change. But that has to be so scary considering the amount.
It does. You know, it's Sam and I are great friends, first and foremost, and so it was easy to have the conversation, but it was not easy for him to disclose that most of the student loans he brought into the marriage. I had lots, but he had to bring in the most, and it was pretty quick after that. I think we both understood we're never going to have the life we want if we do not pay off this debt. So it was pretty intuitive, to be honest with you.
And so, but was there a thing that, like, what was the day that made it, that turned it?
I would say, and I tell this story, we were in the car driving, and student loans, credit cards, they'd been calling my phone all day.
Oh, wow.
And it was like not even noon, and I kid you not, I probably had a dozen calls. And I was like, Sam, pull the car over. Like, pull the car over. We pulled the car over in like this back alley behind a bank, ironically enough, and we were just crying. And I was like, we're never gonna have the life we want. Like, we're never gonna have children. We're never gonna have this. Like, I mean, I was just letting it all go. He was like, Jade, we can get through this. We're gonna get through this. And that just really turned it for us that it was like, okay, do or die. We must pay off this debt.
And so what caused you to do the Ramsey plan versus like working just your way out?
I heard Dave long ago, like so many people did. I heard him on the radio and I just put it on the back shelf. And this was time. I said, I think this guy Dave that I heard on the radio, I think we need to do it. We drove to Barnes & Noble and got the workbook, Total Money Makeover, and started walking through the baby steps. And the rest was history.
Okay, so I love that picture of you guys in the car. And you are upset, you're emotional and crying. So for you, what was that deep emotion that it was triggering in you? Because there's a lot of, women watching the show, married, single moms, ones without kids, but like there's that feeling that everyone has. Yeah. And what was that emotion? Was it fear? Was it sadness? Like what was
it? It was a frustration. It was an incongruency because I'm a Christian person by faith, and I'd always heard the scripture, I've come that they may have life and life to the full, and that they'll have a rich and satisfying life. I was like, my life is not rich or satisfying, and it is not to the fullest. And then I later read the beginning of that scripture that says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but Christ came to have life and life to the fullest. I was like, debt is our thief. Oh. It's stealing this from us. And I knew that. And I knew that this is not what God wants for me. Yeah. And I have to make this right. And I knew that that's what he wanted. And he helped us make it right.
It's amazing. Okay, so you guys decide together.
Yes.
We're going to do this. So what did that journey from that point on look like? Like, what were the first couple of things you guys did? Was it to disclose all the debt? Like, did you even know how much debt you guys had?
Not at the time.
Okay.
We knew some of it, but with student loans, and there were so many of them, it's constantly changing because of the interest.
Yes.
So it was getting those numbers, logging on, and then creating a budget, Rachel.
Yeah.
The budget. We did not have one before then. Started working the budget, and then it was like, okay, we're not making enough money. So we had to get side hustles. I mean, Please ask me about my side hustles.
I was going to say, tell me about your side hustles.
Oh my
Shay.
gosh,
I love
the
this.
side hustles. We did everything because we were still trying to find our footing as musicians, right? So not making a ton there, but we did everything. I sold cupcakes. We trained dogs. My husband learned how to train dogs. I did that with him. I worked at a vinyl tent company, vinyl letters, tent, putting tent on windows and installing vinyl letters on like those big work trucks.
Yep.
My hands, my knuckles were ashy, Rachel. I was working.
What was the most lucrative side hustle? What was the thing that you were like, okay, if I had to go back and do that again to earn some extra cash, like?
You know what? It was the things that we were already good at. So I did voice lessons. And since that was my wheelhouse, I was good at it, naturally made more money at it. And so that's why I tell people, if you're side hustling, try to pick something you already are great at, you already love doing, and it's just kind of an offshoot of what you're currently doing.
Yes.
I was already performing, so doing that made perfect sense, and I had a lot of clients because of that.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, and how long was the journey from beginning to end?
7.5 years.
7.5 years.
7.5 years, all of 7.5 years, because that first year we kind of piddled around. People say Dave-ish. We did that.
Yeah.
Didn't cut up the credit cards immediately, and that's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
If you hit the pedal to the metal, that's the way to start.
It'll happen. Okay, so for someone that's on this journey and they're 2 years in and they still have that other like maybe 20 grand out there or whatever it is, what kept you guys motivated? Because that's long, Jade. Like,
it's a long
because we
time.
say with the debt snowball, it's on average 18 to 24 months. And again, that's the average over a decade of pulling numbers and all of that.
Yeah.
So you guys were longer than that, but obviously you had a larger debt than average too.
Yeah.
But what kept you going in that process?
Like I said before, I knew that this was God's plan. He wanted us to have this life, the borrower, slave to the lender. And I knew that. And I knew that if we just worked this plan, I listened to the Ramsey show every single day during that time to stay motivated. And I would say that to people, be around the community. Like if you're in FPU, if you're working the baby steps, stay connected to that community because that's what keeps you going. Hearing people do debt-free screams every single day.
Yes.
We can do this.
Okay, that's good. So you've said, not to like use your words now, but like, on this process, there were a couple of really helpful things.
Yes.
One was the budget.
Yes.
You said that. One is community and encouragement. What are like maybe two other things would you encourage people to do?
Well, if you're married, you've got to keep the lines of communication open. That's a big one. And you've got to find ways to celebrate. Like I say all the time, for the people who are in the longer journeys because you've got more debt, you have to create milestones to just take a second of a breather. Yep. And even if that's just like pulling back on one of the side hustles, just for a moment, you don't have to spend money to take a breather, but just give yourself a moment to go, okay, I can, year 3.5, okay, like what does this look like? You have to build in those milestones to celebrate.
Yeah, because there's a piece to all of this where I feel like it's sometimes easier on this side of the camera to be like, work extra side hustles, cut everything out of the budget, and just go. And to an extent, you can do that. But also, there's a level that it's like my mental capacity to just like breathe in life. So how did you guys kind of balance that, you and Sam, in that? Does that make sense? Like, because the gazelle intensity is really important. But again, for a long course of years and years and years, how did you guys balance like that, having that break? Maybe it was that, pulling back like a side hustle.
It was pulling back a side hustle. For us, we had the luxury, we worked on cruise lines. So it was like, I almost feel like God was just like giving us a little wink because we would be in these beautiful places. We couldn't do any of the fun stuff because we had no money, but it's like, but at least it's sunny outside.
At least there's an ocean. The Caribbean is right there. That's a good point.
But one of the things I did, I started learning how to cook, like gourmet meals, so that when we were home, we weren't going to restaurants. So I would learn how to cook these restaurant meals and sit down with Sam, and it was like, this is our reward. We just paid off, however much money today. We have no money in our account except our cushion, but at least we're having a great meal. That's what we did. And you just learn to be content. Yeah. You learn to not care what people think. We didn't have furniture in our house for such a long time. We just made a joke of it.
That's right. That's right.
This is what we're doing. And pretty soon our friends got on board. So
good. I know I've quoted this book a few times already, but The Psychology of Money, I read that.
I'm reading it now.
Okay. Yes. But he talks about your ego and how that's the thing that gets in the middle of saving money. That's the thing. I mean, and it really is. We're like, when you can just put your ego aside and truly not care about what people think, because we talk about comparison living and stuff all the time. But there's something about even just pinpointing that word for me that was so, I don't know why, it just was so good for me. Because it's that. Yeah. It's putting our ego aside and saying, we don't have furniture. We're going to make it joy. Like, we can't continue to try to keep up with everyone else and make ourselves feel good about the clothes we wear, the car we drive. Like, it's not about that. It's really not.
That's right.
It's about, so that's powerful. I love that as an example. That's so good.
And you would be surprised the people who, when you just say out loud, I'm working a budget, I'm working a financial plan, I'm doing this thing, Dave Ramsey, how many people respect you more for it as they see that you're sticking to it, you're doing it. They're like, well, maybe I need to start, looking at my finances. So it really is a mirror, and it can affect, your sphere of influence in a major way.
Yes,
so
that's so good. Okay, so you touched on this earlier, but you and Sam working together. Yes. So what would you say to, because you, in a sense, were very blessed that like you came to him and y'all both were quickly on the same page, but that's not a lot of the stories for a lot of people. What were a couple of things that you saw in you guys working together that maybe can be encouragement to someone who's working this plan with a spouse who might be a little reluctant? I
think that the biggest thing I call it a vocab rehab. I say you can't say words like his debt and my debt and your money. It has to be we and ours. And I think if you start using those words, they're a lot more loving, number one, and it indicates that we're in this together. And two, just don't say things that are gonna make the other person feel shameful. Like if Sam told me he had this debt, I could have totally shamed him. Like, how could you spend that on college? But instead I was like, all right. I do. I said I do, so I do to all of it, and you have to remember that. I do is for all of it, not just the good stuff.
No, that's so good. My therapist last week said
come on, therapy.
About marriage, though, but it's in the same vein when you said that, because I was like, God, that's so true. We were talking about how anger is kind of like the fun emotion, because you're like, adrenaline's going, and you can like, you're like, blah, 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 blah. And while that's there, usually it's paired with something deeper. There's something else going on. And so how the door of anger is really hard for your spouse to walk through, but it's much easier to walk through when you say like, God, I'm just so scared.
Yes.
Or like, I'm just so sad that there's other ways to approach the conversation, even though there might be some anger. And you might be like, but to kind of dig for yourself, kind of dig in and say, hey, what really is going on? What am I feeling? And that's an easier door for a spouse to walk through than the anger door.
That's right.
Even though anger can be very fun, very, very freeing. But I thought that it's kind of vulnerable too. Anger's not,
It is. Saying I'm scared is a lot more vulnerable than I'm angry.
That's right, that's right. So that's even like the way you approach it, because you're talking about the vocab, but even the way you approach the vocabulary too, kind of gives that open door to the spouse, which I think is so good.
Yeah, and we set times to talk about it. It was a big, heavy elephant in the room. It's not something that you're just like casually bringing up. And so it's like, hey, I think today we need to talk about like what our next steps are, or like, let's set up a time to sit and talk about it, and not just like spring it on them. So all of that is helpful.
That's so great. Oh, well, you guys have done an incredible job, Jade.
Thank you.
I mean, it really is. I mean, their story, and even more detail, because I'm sure I'm going to be having you on much more in the future. But,
let's do it.
But as you unpack it, you've really walked it out, and you guys did it. And it's just so inspiring. So I so appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And again, all of you guys, it's like, it's amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so where can everyone find you?
Yes, find me on social media. Right now, you can find me at Jade Warshaw, and soon you'll be able to find me at jadewarshaw.com. So that's great.
I know, and all her stuff, you guys, with food, her Instagram is so good. Like the way you break everything down, like even just meal-wise, I'm like,
thank you.
It's so good, Jade. It's so good. So yeah, make sure to check out everything Jade is doing, and make sure to share this video with a friend who may need some inspiration when it comes to paying off debt if they are in the middle of their journey, or if you are in the middle of yours, we are rooting for you. So remember, you guys, to take control of your money and create a life you love.